Hey everyone, Derek here with a quick news update on Iwata-san, a new book published today in Japan by Hobonichi, which covers the life of Satoru Iwata, and a small part of it has been translated by IGN, specifically a new interview with Shigeru Miyamoto on their friendship, as well as his friendship with Shigesato Itoi, the creator of Earthbound and the founder of the book's publisher, Hobonichi. So let's cover Miyamoto first, and right off the bat he says, "To me, he was a friend more than anything. It never felt like he was my boss or that I was working under him. He never got angry, we never fought about anything. It was also never a point of friction that Iwata, who was 7 years younger than Miyamoto, became his boss." He says, "Normally, if someone younger than yourself with fewer years of experience becomes president, it might be difficult to get along with each other. But it was never like that. It had always been obvious that he was more suited for the position than me, so it never became a problem. I think it allowed us to naturally become true friends." And while the two rarely worked on a game together, with Pokemon Snap being one of the few exceptions, as it was an idea that they conceived together, the two shared opinions over lunch on a daily basis. Miyamoto still remembers one of their first meals together. It was at the time that Iwata was running HAL Laboratories, and he was in Kyoto to work on a project. Late at night, they went for a bowl of ramen, and Nintendo doesn't pay for social expenses, so they had to go Dutch on the bill. That became a tradition that lasted even after he became company president and I became an executive. Miyamoto also remembers how Iwata used to call himself a Miyamoto watcher and how he was known to recall Miyamoto's quotes better than the man himself. He says, "Since he passed away, Nintendo has been doing just fine. He left many words and structures that live on in the work of our younger employees today. The only problem is that if there is some good-for-nothing idea that I come up with over the weekend, I have no one to share it with the next Monday. That I can no longer hear him say, 'Oh, about that thing,' is a bit of a problem for me. It makes me sad." It then moves on to the words of Shigesato Itoi, who says that Monday lunches with Miyamoto must have been one of Iwata's favorite things. He then recalls how Iwata once came to his office in Tokyo to ask him to become an advisor for HAL Laboratories. Itoi goes on to say that Iwata said that the vision behind his business was to make everyone happy, himself, his friends at work, and his customers. He used the English word for happy instead of the Japanese word, which charmed me. It's funny how you remember the most insignificant things, but whenever Iwata used the word happy, he would show you the palms of both of his hands. That's something I don't think I'll ever forget. And he then mentions that Iwata's conversations with Miyamoto over lunch were full of ideas on how to make people happy. For example, when Nintendo's previous president, Hiroshi Yamauchi, requested the development of a gaming device with 2 screens, the two of them were left wondering how to realize the idea. But they figured it out at the parking lot of an Italian restaurant they frequented. That idea later became the Nintendo DS. Itoi then says, "On the day of Iwata's funeral, it rained in torrents, and Miyamoto and I were waiting around. Suddenly, I decided to ask him how much chance Iwata himself had believed he had to be cured. Miyamoto responded immediately, in a very natural manner. He totally believed that he would become better. He didn't have the slightest intention to die." That answer made me realize just how close Miyamoto and Iwata were, and to what extent they understood each other. But the two of them were close as well. Their first encounter was during the development of Earthbound in the early 90s. He says, "It's hard to describe how I felt when first meeting him. There was something very pleasant about him. Without even really knowing him, you could immediately feel that he was someone you could trust." What I really appreciated about Iwata is that he was never insecure, and he would never show off or get mad just to show his authority or anything like that. That's why you could have long conversations with him without things ever becoming awkward in the slightest. And he thinks that this natural characteristic of Iwata is what allowed their relationship to become one of the longest and most important friendships of his life. Even after Iwata took the job of president at Nintendo and became one of the busiest people in the industry, the two met on a frequent basis. Itoi says, "All we would do is talk, to the extent that my wife once said something like, 'All men ever do is chat.' In Kyoto, I would come up with an excuse to meet him somewhere in town and have a chat, and then we would continue our conversation over lunch, and we would still be talking after coming back home. I remember how Iwata would throw a ball for my dog while talking, then my wife would take the dog for a stroll, and when she came back we were still talking. Sometimes a conversation that started in the afternoon could last until after 9 p.m. And while those conversations were not strictly about work, he believed that sharing ideas and thoughts helped both Iwata and himself in their decision making. Much like his lunches with Miyamoto, the conversations with Itoi were yet another occasion for Iwata to share his newest idea on how to make people happy. Itoi finally says, as the head of a big company, he probably should have been accompanied by someone, but Iwata always came over to my office just by himself. He would grab a cab, and as he rolled his suitcase, I can still hear him say, "Hello there," with that high-pitched voice of his. And that's everything that IGN translated from that section of the Iwata-san book. As of right now, the book is only planned for a Japanese release, but hopefully it will see a full translation and be released in other territories, as just this small snippet of interviews with Miyamoto and Itoi really give a sense of just how incredible a man Iwata really was. So I'm truly hoping that this book gets translated and released worldwide. But what do you guys think about Iwata and his relationships with both Miyamoto and Itoi? Let us know in the comments, and of course be sure to subscribe to Game Explain for more on Nintendo and other things gaming as well. Until next time, bye.